I'm Jay Federman. I'm a family physician from Saranac Lake, where I've lived and practiced medicine since 1975, in the practice established by Edward Livingston Trudeau in 1884. I'm also the medical director for the Tri-Lakes Division of High Peaks Hospice. I'm submitting written testimony in addition to these comments. Assembly Bill 2383A is important, well-crafted legislation modeled on sound, established law from other states. In my position as a family doctor and hospice medical director, I've had the privilege and responsibility of caring for numerous people at the end of their lives. In the last several decades, hospice and palliative care have made an important and valuable contribution to this inevitable event. At times, however, hospice care is not sufficient to meet the needs of every patient and family in all circumstances. For a variety of reasons, some individuals seek more personal control of their dying process and an assurance they will not suffer at the end. This is why the Medical Aid in Dying Act should be supported and enacted into law in New York State. Early in my career, I had the painful but ultimately gratifying experience of providing comfort and oversight in my home for my 31-year-old sister who was dying from cancer. At the time, no hospice or palliative care was available in our community. Because of my presence, she and my parents had the peace of mind that her inevitable death would be peaceful. Fortunately, extraordinary measures were not necessary. Over the years, patients have requested my assistance in their death. Because of New York's law, I felt helpless. I've witnessed colleagues who publicly speak against medical aid in dying make the case that this practice takes place anyhow, and therefore legalization is not necessary. They quip, "Let's keep government out of it." I've heard families state their loved ones receive medical aid in dying because of their connections and long-standing personal relationship with their physician. Such options should be legally available to everyone and not a function of happenstance or personal status. Presently, 7 states and the District of Columbia have a cumulative experience approaching 50 years of legalized aid in dying. There's not been a single documented instance of abuse of the law. The enactment of such legislation stimulates much-needed discussion among individuals and families regarding end-of-life issues and makes this difficult and often heart-wrenching process a more positive experience. Minorities, the disadvantaged, the elderly, and the more vulnerable are not coerced into availing themselves of this option, but on the contrary, have been less likely to elect using it. In fact, aid in dying laws have led to an improvement in end-of-life care for everyone. According to a report published in the New England Journal of Medicine, Oregon's medical aid in dying law has helped spur the state to lead the nation in hospice enrollment. In California, the recent passage of aid in dying has brought conversations about end-of-life out of the shadows and led to improvements in end-of-life care beyond just those using the law. Medical aid in dying is one component of end-of-life care, not an alternative to palliative or hospice care. Nearly 20 years of experience in Oregon is revealing the vast majority of patients, more than 90%, who utilize Oregon's Death with Dignity Act are enrolled in hospice at the time of their request. Concerns that the Death with Dignity Act would conflict with palliative care have not been realized. Hospice use has steadily increased and is now double the national average, with more appropriate lengths of stay and with more people dying at home than in healthcare facilities. End-of-life conversations between doctors and patients in states that have authorized aid in dying laws have improved, and hospice providers note an increased willingness to discuss and consider hospice care. There's widespread support for medical aid in dying among the general population and professional groups. In every medical society surveyed, a significant majority of physicians support aid in dying, in contrast to those who oppose it by a ratio of approximately 2 to 1. Support in the population at large extends across social, ethnic, and religious groups. Medical aid in dying is not murder, suicide, assisted suicide, or euthanasia. Furthermore, it is not a slippery slope. It is the epitome of personalized or patient-centered care, where the individual is in control and their values and decision-making are honored. This desire for autonomy and sense of control is what many dying patients report in their request for this aid. Modern medical technology is stunning and advances on a near daily basis. One downside of this may be the creation of false or unrealistic hopes. I believe this is a contributing factor in our society's difficulty dealing realistically with death. On an individual level, this often takes the form of pursuing futile treatment. Hospice and palliative care have gone a long way in correcting this. The addition of medical aid in dying is needed to provide a full range of options for all people seeking end-of-life care. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I'll be happy to take any questions.